Hit record.
This meeting is being recorded.
Okay.
Okay.
Hi, Danny.
Oh, I can see me properly now. I can relocate. Hold on. That's better. Okay. So I've got my boycott procreation T-shirt. I've
Yeah, okay.
seen that one before. That's from uh, Stop Having Kids. Right. Okay, so it's the 18th of May, and I'm here with Gary, who was the first person really that I came across online, recommended to me by a friend. I'm going to have to move from this place because there's too many flies. And see, it's funny, isn't it? It's funny. It's like I'm basically. Let me just explain. I'm going to go just sort of cut to the chase before we go into this whole story. Is that I decided to basically go and find a place in Cyprus. I'm in Cyprus at the moment in a stunning villa. Um, and I'm right by the beach, and it's beautiful weather. And I'm trying to find a place to sit. But the one thing about it is that you go outside here, and it's full of bugs and flies, and they're flying around the place. They've bitten me up all over my legs and my arms. Yeah, I mean it's a small price to pay for living in paradise, but it's just another example of how crazy this
Yeah,
whole.
there's always a catch.
Yeah,
And here it's mosquitoes, they're just incessant. And
I know.
once the hard summer hits, it's like you can't enjoy it, because they're going to get you.
I know. Yeah. Anyway, I'm in the middle of a conversation which I'm recording. Yeah. Yeah. Um, anyway, so it's the 25th of May, 18th of May, 2025, and I'm here with Gary, and Gary made a lovely video about, how I can't remember, you called it something like, I wish wishing you better was going to make any difference.
Yeah.
But I want to
And
just
I,
share with you a little bit, and I just want to have a chat with you, and we'll see if this is a chat that can go out to the world or not. And it doesn't matter anyway. It's just good to talk to you. So basically, what happened was that I had this lump on my throat that I didn't know about, and my sister pointed it out in January, and then I went back and looked at my videos, and it was still there. It was like there a year and a half ago, and I did what all, normal people would do, which is go to the doctor, which are now, it's now difficult for me to, I mean, I did what I did, but for a person like me that is very suspicious of the medical industrial complex, right? As someone who used to work for it, throughout COVID, I didn't take any of their jabs, and I made fun of it all, and I could see what they were doing, and I could see the deceit in it all, and the madness and the money involved, and how money screws with the mind, whether you like it or not, whether you are a good person or not. It doesn't make any difference, right? And so anyway, I went to the doctor, and they gave me a biopsy, right? Eventually, right? And that biopsy, I mean, I don't, as of yet, I don't really, I can't find any other way to explain it. But the biopsy, which is like putting in needles like 10 times, yeah, in and out, and the biopsy seemed to disturb the the cancer, right? It was, the cancer was in this area and for a year and a half, and it was fine. It wasn't growing, it didn't do anything. I didn't notice it. But it seems like the only explanation is that the day after I had the biopsy, all of a sudden everything started getting really big, right? They deny they had anything to do with it, right? Because they have to. Anyway, I was called in, told I had 5 days to go to have a surgery, and if I didn't have the surgery, it would wrap itself around my trachea and choke me to death. And it just like, I don't have to tell you this, but just think to yourself, what kind of like designer of this mad reality are we in that designs a world where there's such a thing as a cancer that fucking strangles you to death, right? I mean, it's just so horrific. It's so crazy. And this is just one example, you know. And you know, I've written about it and I thought to myself, yeah, I got such a shock when they told it to me. But when I think about it, I think back on it, I think like, why should I get a shock? I should have been shocked that I made it to age 58 without that happening to me, you know?
Or that you lived so long thinking some other result was going to take place, that somehow you were just going to die of a heart attack and you
Yeah.
never knew what happened and
Yeah.
blah blah blah. You
Yeah.
know,
And I took care of
and
myself quite a lot compared to my friends. I mean, I've got, for example, I've got a friend who's like, he must be, I don't know how many pounds, but way over 300 pounds, 350 pounds, right? He eats whatever he wants and loads of rubbish, right? And he just, after I told him, we had a lot of fun together and a lot of humor. And after I told him about my diagnosis, he'd just come back from the doctor and he got like full marks on all his blood tests, right? And there am I, like being really like healthy and doing loads of exercise and trying to curtail my eating and all this business. And then I get this, just random. It's just random. There's no rhyme or reason. There's no fairness about it. There's no, you know,
well, the movie Unforgiven, comes to mind. Just the statement "deserve" has nothing to do with it. It's just a statement, and that is everywhere. Even the places we think we're creating fairness, and it's just an illusion. It's just a facade. It's just a mirage. You can't fix the innate imperfection, that just exists in this random order, so to speak, randomized. It's not even really random.
right. Yeah. So, so that's what, so basically I had, yeah, so I had 5 days. And in those 5 days, I was in such shock and in such denial. And also like the thought of my handing myself over to the white coats. Yeah. It just like, it's so difficult to even explain how that's just everything in me says, no, I'm not going into your whole system. I'm not doing it. And the day before I had an operation, I met some guy who was offering me alternatives, but he was a charlatan as far as I'm concerned. At the time, I fell for it. It was the day before, and I cancelled the surgery because I fell for it. I was so desperate to believe him that I let all sorts of little red alarm bells and red flags. I let them just go. Thankfully, my family were there with me, and they realized the red flags, and they managed to get me, to change my mind. And I did have the surgery. And that was like 2 months ago today, or 8 weeks ago today. I had the surgery, and then they say to me that I have to have radiotherapy and chemotherapy, right? Which I describe as, people keep asking me, are you having treatment? I describe it as maltreatment. It's not a treat to have radiotherapy. It's not a treat to have chemotherapy, and it shouldn't be called a treat. It's maltreatment, right? It's poisoning and it's burning, right? And
Yeah, and it's a liability, that you can't really live with, in the sense that, your major arteries are going through the part they're going to irradiate, and you're going to end up walking around a time bomb, any moment,
exactly
catastrophic hemorrhage.
correct. And in this particular case, because I've been diagnosed with anaplastic thyroid cancer, which is basically it's stem cells or stem-like stem cell. The cancer has become like stem cells, which are, it's funny because like I was speaking to my friend here, the way I kind of see the world, and I don't know if you'll sort of jibe me that if you see it like this, but the way I see like the whole world is like clever, stupid. It's so clever and it's so incredibly stupid at the same time. And we humans are like that. I'm like that. I can be really
Yeah,
clever.
scheming is what I call it. We're great schemers, not great thinkers or planners. It's a scheme, and it's always got in it how can I push the problem somewhere, not under a rug, but into somebody else's lap too often,
Yeah.
and that's really what it comes, we're always throwing something else into the grinder ahead of us. We're just, you know, anything will do.
So the way I see the actual stem cells in my body, or the cancer cells, is like as they're clever, stupid, right? Because stem cells are very, very clever because they can become anything, right? But these stem cells are really stupid because if they start to spread more in my body, they're going to kill me and kill themselves, right? Which is
Yeah.
stupid, right? So they're clever, stupid, and that is what life is, and that is what people are, and that is what the whole of this life. It's so clever and complicated, and if you look at all the birds and the flies and us, or how complicated.
Well, just think about how big our brain is and how much knowledge we can absorb, and what are most people doing? How can I get laid? How can I mean, it's all this crude agenda for this very powerful and magnificent thinking machine.
Yeah,
And it's just it's a calculator. It's a computer doing the work of a calculator.
yeah,
It's just squandering it.
yeah, yeah. So basically, so I had the surgery. It was very successful, and they don't usually in the anaplastic cancer cases, they rarely get people they can even operate on, because usually people come with symptoms. Yeah, the cancer is wrapped around their trachea or esophagus, and they
Exactly.
can't
It's
even
wrapped
breathe.
around.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and then they
exactly.
can't operate on them, right? And I've been reading on Facebook the group, anaplastic cancer group, and it's horrific. The stories are just absolutely horrific. They had to put pipes in and all this terrible stuff, right? And so they offered me like radiotherapy and chemotherapy, but I've had different. It's such a rare cancer that they don't really have much information. They don't have much evidence. They don't have much data. So they just sort of make it up themselves. But basically, that they gave me. I've spoken to 5 oncologists, right? I've also spoken to several alternative practitioners, right? But I've spoken to 5 oncologists, and they all gave different ideas, right? And the first one, who's the top supposedly, says, do radiotherapy, do chemotherapy as well, but there's only a 5% chance that it's going to actually cure you. It's just going to come back anyway. And then we'll give you some other drugs, right? Some blockers, which are not quite as nasty in their side effects, right? And then the next one said, just do radio. And the next one said, just do lower part of the neck radio. And then a fourth one says, don't do any of them, right? So I've got all this stuff going on, right? It's interesting because their whole attitude is like it's just to keep the people alive as long as possible. Don't really worry too much about the quality of life or what the point of staying alive
And
is.
they have a cookbook, the
Yeah,
stuff they're good at. And they
correct,
just do the cookbook. And,
correct.
they can't, a new ingredient. Oh, no, I don't do new
No,
ingredients.
no, no, absolutely. So anyway, so I decided after a lot of thought and a lot of research and a lot of heart rendering, I don't know, whatever. I decided that I got measured up for the radiotherapy. They put a mask on you and they got measured up for this rate. I'm not calling it radio for the burning. And but I started to make up my mind, and what I've decided is I've moved. I mean, I don't know if I've not moved. Like I've got this villa that I'm in. I'm calling you from Cyprus. Yeah. And it's like paradise here, except the flies, of course. Um, but it's on the beach, and there's a beautiful pool here, and I'm sitting in the sunshine all day. I'm like with some really amazing friends and living. I suppose I would describe it as living the good life or dying a good death. I don't know. And according to all these oncologists, the chances are that it's all going to come back and, you know, get me and polish me off soon. And my attitude towards it all is, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know when it's going to happen, but this has pushed me to create a really amazing space here with a couple of friends, and I'm going to invite people here to come and join me. And we go every morning. We get up with the sunrise. I go cycling for an hour or two. Right, I'm completely healthy. It's weird, right? I haven't had one moment of ill health. I had the operation. It was fine. I was out of hospital in 4 days. And before that and after that, I haven't had any symptoms, which is like really, really strange, right? So I'm in this situation where I don't have any symptoms. I don't know what's going on inside my body, but I'm living the most amazing life. I'm breathing, you know, fresh air rather than, you know, London city air. You know, I'm relaxing, I'm doing exercise, I'm doing yoga, I'm doing dancing. I'm just trying to create an amazing space here.
Well, every day, you know, we technically die when we go to sleep. You know, and you know, part of the process is well, okay, you're going to have a bit of a nightmare before you die, you know, before you really go to sleep, or you know, and you know, but it's that context of there's never a good day. You know, there's always this ability to just say, I'd rather slide this off till tomorrow, thank you. You know, and the sense that you know we always feel underdone, like I'm always going to be underdone. Even if I do something perfect, it'll be like, well, I should have done four of those. You know what I
Right.
mean? I should
Well, it's
have.
funny you should say
You
that.
win
Like,
Wimbledon once, you say, I got to win twice.
right.
You know, and then you win twice, you got to win three.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like funny what you say because, like, you know, you introduced me to the idea of the addiction to life, that life is addiction, right? And I've struggled with various addictions. I still do, right? Including eating. I still struggle with my eating. Um, and that's it's the same thing, right? It's the same thing. You know, I just want one more. I'll start tomorrow. You know, I just want one more, whatever those things. In with living, right? Um, but you know,
So it's all kind of inevitable, I guess is my point. It just doesn't matter where you put it. It's always going to be inconvenient.
correct.
And so once you accept the part that, well, it's going to happen anyway. So what am I panicking about in the sense
Yeah,
that I'm going to have to face it tomorrow? Oh, you know, what's the difference?
yeah,
You know,
yeah. So yeah, so that's what I've decided to do as an experiment. And we've been here for a week. We're staying here for at least a month. And you know what, with like Airbnb, yeah, if you've got the funds, which I do to a certain degree, I've got, you know, I can do this in different places. That's what I'm planning to do, is just to live an amazing life in different places and to set up space for people to join me free of charge, right? And live good, live well. So that's what I'm
you're
doing.
doing the list thing, right? There's a movie about doing that,
What's that?
you know,
What's
just
it called?
there's a movie I think called The List or something, you know, where somebody just lists these things they
Oh,
want to
yes, yes,
complete
yes.
in
The
their
bucket
life.
list.
And,
Yeah,
you know, in a sense,
yeah,
you're doing that for real.
yeah,
And well, you
yeah.
look
In a
good.
way,
And
in a way, but I mean, yes, but in a slightly different way in terms of like I don't really I don't really have some bucket list of like,
you're not placing an agenda on it. You're just
no, not
you're
really.
just taking it a
I'm
day at a time
experimenting.
instead.
Yeah, live exactly. But I'm but you know, there's certain ingredients that I really like for me, which is sunshine and you know, good air and not too many people and you know, and exercise and cycling and all that kind of thing, right? That's what's for me, living a good life.
Well, you know, I have the same thing in the sense I've always had a connection to nature. I've always liked the outdoors. Now, even though I hate the whole evolution
Me
thing,
too,
I hate
me
the
too.
whole thing
I
it's
know,
made out of.
I know.
I mean,
We
it's
can
it's
see
the
through
only
it.
place
We can see through
I
it.
feel real and alive is in that you know, is out there. You know, you always feel like you're in the matrix when you're in a house. You know, it's always so much more synthetic.
So Gary, listen, I've got a question for you. you might want to think about. It's going to shock you a bit, right? But I don't know if you're like able to do this, but you're invited to join me if you want to.
Yeah,
You
I'd
couldn't, could you?
take you up. I'd take you up on it in a minute. Okay, if it wasn't the fact that I'm an agoraphobic, and
Yeah.
I
Absolutely.
didn't even, I didn't even go to my parents' funerals and all that.
Right.
It's just so. If it wasn't for the fact that I'm pretty too crippled in some
Right.
respect,
Shame.
because I
Love
really,
to have you here.
I'm just saying, yes, I really admire how you've handled this, and I just mean the whole approach you've had. Like I said, I'm not a fan of bullhorns, but you did it brilliantly.
Mm.
And so there's just so much that's good about your story, and like especially the part I respect so much is the part where you're like, there's so many people that'll defend meat eating because they're addicted to food, to animals. And it's so rare that somebody will say, yes, I admit I'm addicted. I admit, but I know it's wrong. And
Yeah.
just that simple statement. And you did it in this big way where you had to take this terrible trespass against the happy card you send your kids or something, and made a statement about, yes, you were just a reckless, sloppy, stupid mistake, and I'm not going to bullshit and create some fake narrative that I was on some great
Yeah.
destiny.
I know.
And this
No.
is all part of our great destiny. There was none of that in it,
Yeah.
and that's so admirable.
Mm. So yeah, so that's where I'm at, and it's like it's funny because I haven't published much and written much about it all. I'm just trying to be and enjoy my life and be present, and at the same time, like I have written an article about oncologists and how on earth anybody can be an oncologist and be pro-natalist. I don't understand it. It's madness. Or how people can like work in a hospital and see this tragedies day after day after day, horrific, and have to tell people, you've got terrible cancer and everything,
Well,
and they just
what
go back
people
home and have fucking kids.
and to see what people will do in this desperate effort to live another day.
Yes, that as well.
The Ebert guy who used to be a movie reviewer here, he had to have his whole jaw removed.
Oh,
The whole, his
oh,
whole, and and constant hemorrhages, constant, and it's just, why would I mean, how is this an acceptable compromise of your life? I mean, it's like basically just putting your head in a jar and say all you can do is stare at the wall over here
yeah,
forever. I
yeah.
don't know how people could
I
live
know.
that
I don't understand that
um,
either. And it's
compromised.
yeah, and that's why, in a way, I guess, I hate to have to say this because it's all random and ridiculous and meaningless, but um, you know, I guess that the fact that this has happened, and I wouldn't want it to happen to anybody, but the fact that it's happened has kind of pushed me to do what I've always kind of wanted to do, which was to create a beautiful space of living, a healthy, beautiful space of living that other people can come to free of charge. Because the other thing that I've learned in this whole situation is that the money is so problematic that at the bottom of this, the money that's being made in the cancer industry, which is what I call it, is just so ridiculous. It's trillions and trillions, and it's not just the traditional doctors, it's also the alternatives. They're also at it, right? And they are
Well,
recommending.
the fact that it's for sale,
Yeah,
that there's any idea that you would actually make a
no,
good living,
yeah,
or a highly profitable living, or any
yeah.
kind of living off of sickness.
I
I mean,
know.
that's just
So
so,
twisted. It's
that's
so
Dracula. I mean,
right.
that is just so parasitic.
Yeah, it's awful. And I have a friend, one of the oncologists, I'll tell you something, a cute story. One of the oncologists or radio oncologists that I spoke to, who's a friend of my brother, is an American, right? He makes over $1 million a year burning people, right? And he said a couple of things. He said number one, he's not sure he's ever even benefited anybody overall. or that overall he's not sure that whether his work has benefited, if you took everything into account. He also said that he was working in a hospital in a large city. I won't even mention where, just in case, right? In a large city in the States, and they called him in, and they said to him, "We're not making enough money out of you and your work, so we have decided to change our policy, and we're going to give everybody, all women with breast cancer, radiation." Right? And he said, "No, I'm not doing that. That's not appropriate." And he lost his job, and he had to sign a non-disclosure agreement. And so he could never tell anyone. He had to go and find a job in some little town somewhere and move his whole family, right? So that's just two examples of the corruption of it all. And then you've got, like you said, it's just so sick. Then you've got all the alternative people who are just selling all sorts of, supplements and
Well, you see the commercials here constantly. They're all over the place, selling the cure. They got the cure. They got the cure. Just call, 1-800 blah, 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 and
yeah,
we'll cure you. And it's just, they don't have that. And if
yeah,
they had it, why would you sell it?
I
I
know.
mean, if you
No,
have the cure,
I
why the
know.
hell would you put a price tag on it?
No, I
Well,
know.
it's just knowledge. The cure isn't some special
Right.
interferon that can only be made by spending $1 million to make an ounce. It's just information. If it's just information, you give it to people. You don't sell
Yeah.
it to people.
But more importantly, right, don't bring people here in the bloody first place, and then they won't get
Exactly.
cancer.
Exactly. They're always going to have to deal with this, and with this technology, you end up dying 3 or 4 times. You don't get it over with. So in some sense, nature is more humane because it gives you 2 weeks,
Yeah.
and you do it once. You don't get to die 7 times.
So,
That's another one of my nightmares is,
mm,
just this, you know,
yeah. So,
over and over again.
mm, mm. So that's where I'm at, and the amazing thing is that I don't, that I'm surprised at myself that I haven't just completely caved in, because there's so much fear around it all, and there's so much.
I know, but you have to say to yourself, just think how lucky you is. The fact that it could have been so much
Yeah,
worse and everything so far has gone fairly well. You're way ahead of, well, I can always play that game, right? I was talking about in the video I just made where, it does work. Imagining the worser case does make your shitty case look better, and it does psychologically help
yeah,
to make you walk through it, is to say, damn, I've been really lucky, so why am I whining?
yeah, yeah,
Because that guy got it a hell of a lot worse than I did.
yeah,
you know
yeah, yeah. So that's where I'm at, Gary, and I just wanted to sort of touch down with you, and just say that
I'm
I would
thank you. I
love.
mean,
I
I,
knew you
I
couldn't
I
now, but thank
really
you.
appreciate this opportunity. Not that we have to have closure, but I just mean it's such a big event. It's one I got to live with too. You're of that age, and you know what's coming for me.
Yeah, I know.
Um,
Something.
and we're all, so I'm a fellow traveler in a sense. I'm a little bit luckier because it hasn't happened yet, but we know it's going to happen. you
Yeah,
know, and what is it going to do? I mean, how, is it going to show up on me and shock me? Is it going to, and that's, you know, it's we're both in the same predicament in the sense that you really have to live your life pretending it's never going to happen. And then when it does happen, yeah, you have to change the gears and you have to figure out how do I live with this knowledge and say, I now know I have to focus on today and I
yeah,
can't do anything else. I can't worry about that because it's out of my control, and that's the truth of it.
yeah, yeah. Anyway, I've got to go. I might chat again with you. If you've got anything to write to me or to say to me or whatever, I'd love to hear from you. And it's really good chatting with you.
Yeah, I can always make another video, right? I'm a good talker. But anyway, yeah, like I said, I really appreciate it. And, thanks for
Lots
getting
of
in
love.
touch.
All right, take
Okay.
care. Bye.
Bye-bye.